motion together for Red White Bird.
Well, we will be underway here in just a little bit. You do see Sacher there on your left, Longmore on your right. Sacher not traveling as much to play Magic anymore, but now that he has relocated to Las Vegas, very convenient for him to come out and do battle.
Yeah, he was in the Invitational last weekend and now is here battling in his new adopted hometown.
Longmore going to start for the Temple of Silence and leave that card on top. Sacher going to draw a copy of Chandra's Phoenix. You see multiple Mutavaults in the grip right now. And there is the first one, so we may see an attack here on turn number 2, depending on what Longmore does. Longmore with a negate in the grip. Don't see that main deck all the time, but 3 of them in the main deck this weekend.
That's a ton of main deck negates. I mean, I like a main deck negate more than most. Feline, I believe, accidentally dropping it on the table here. But 3 is a lot even by my standards.
Yeah, a much different build of Blue-Eye Control here. There are 3 main deck copies of Ratchet Bomb, 4 Last Breath, 2 Doomblade. Those 3 negates that we did mention, 4 Heroes Downfall, 4 Dissolve, some Jade, so Supreme Verdict, 2 copies of Planar Cleansing, 1 Elspeth, and 4 copies of Sphinx's Revelation. So this is one without really any win conditions. As in comes the Mutavault. And it's just a very different take. This is the player who, it seems like many people in the room as well, do not want to lose to Boss Sly.
Although, yeah, I mean, her list is definitely, I mean, there's some highs and some lows. 3 main deck negates, 3 main deck Ratchet Bombs. I mean, this is a much different build of this deck.
It's a lot of Wrath effects.
Yes.
You've got 4 Verdicts, there's a Planar Cleansing, and 3 Ratchet Bombs. Absolutely no interest in losing to a Boss Sly style deck. The question is, how does she match up against these burn decks as a Sacred Foundry is going to come into play untapped here?
Well, you know, AJ is playing with Young Pyromancer, so having access to main deck Ratchet Bombs is excellent for Feline in this matchup. And the 3 main deck, the 3 main deck negates also do a lot of work here.
Yeah, it's normally, you know, Esper has a difficult game 1 matchup. Things don't get great after sideboard, but game 1 is an absolute nightmare, and I don't think that's the case here.
I mean, this is Esper control, but this is not a list anything close to what we've seen before.
It's time for Mutavault to come into the red zone after playing another Mutavault, so Sacher's going to start whittling away at that life total. And if Mutavault's able to get in 4 to 6 points of damage, it's a really good burn spell then.
And AJ's going to want to completely change the way that he's playing this matchup here because he's seen the negate out of Feline's hand. Anytime that she has mana up, he's going to want to commit mana to either casting creatures or activating Mutavault. If the shields are down or AJ's in a spot where he can chain together multiple spells, that changes the equation. You see AJ here leading off with the Lightning Strike in lieu of the Boros Charm, wants to kind of test spell Feline here. If she lets it resolve, that's great, and if she wants to negate it, that opens up the door for Boros Charm to resolve.
Temple, going to come in here for Sacher, top card. We'll see where it's going to go. And top card's going to go to the bottom. It's time to fire Mutavaults and work some more damage across here. So Mutavault, always a difficult card here for Esper control, and looks to be the same case here as always.
The most problematic card for Esper that's in the main decks of decks is, you know, has to be Mutavault. I mean, Domri, there's Planeswalker, Xenagos. There's a lot of high-profile, splashy cards that do the damage, but there's a lot to be said for Mutavault.
Temple of Silence going to come in here for Longmore before passing the turn back. As you did mention, there are some bad draws for Longmore, of course. A card like Supreme Verdict, very poor in this matchup, so you don't want to draw a high density of those. And even though she does have 4 copies of Last Breath and 2 Doomblades, hasn't found those yet to get these Mutavaults off the table. Sacher going to play another copy of Temple of Triumph.
AJ's attack with the Mutavault on turn 2 was riskier than maybe he assumed, because Feline does have a lot of main deck removal spells for Mutavault.
Well, here's the Sphinx's Revelation, so it's just a small one, and it will be for 1. So, gonna draw a card here.
For someone used to casting Time Spiral, this must not feel good.
Well, I'm sure we will see a lot of that tomorrow. Yep. But yeah, revving for 1 is not the same. They don't make them like they used to.
Nope.
Longmore does have a Hero's Downfall over there as well. Going to take 2, go down to 7. Interestingly enough, Longmore's been playing Burn a lot before making this conversion over to this deck, so you have to imagine has an idea about how to play against this sort of strategy. Sacher says, I've got 7 points of damage in my hand, along with the Boros Charm and a Shock, so your Elspeth resolves, but you do not get to untap. And Longmore says, all right, you win, you win.
I have 7, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14 points of damage in my hand.
AJ Sacher going to win game number 1 here over Feline. Longmore, Red, White, Burn, Pyromancer, up a game of Esper Controls. We do turn our attention to the sideboards, and you've got Longmores in front of you.
3 copies of Gainsay, 3 Dispels, 3 Dark Betrayals, 3 copies of Deicide, 2 copies of Doomblade, and an Aetherling. 3 Dispels, really big upgrade, especially alongside the 3 copies of Negate she has in the main deck. The rest of the sideboard, you know, I can take it or leave it. Not really a lot going on here, but I think the 3 Dispels are a big swing.
Other side of things, Sacher with a lot of 2 ofs, 2 Pithing Needle, 2 Reprisal, 2 Banishing Light, 2 Chandra Pyromaster, 2 copies of Wear and Tear, a Prophetic Flame Speaker, excuse me, and then 4 copies of Boros Reckoner, card that you mentioned right at the top. And this is almost overkill. Now, again, I'm thrilled for Tom Ross that he won the Invitational, but man, oh man, this is not the weekend to play this deck.
Oh, seriously. 4 Boros Reckoner and 2 Chandras in the sideboard of a deck that already has Shocks, Young Pyromancers, other removal spells.
Yeah. This is not the weekend for Boss Sly. I think Osip maybe was smart to drop it 1-1, not wanting to try to slog through this stuff, because it's not a deck that's good against hate in the first place.
Yeah, Tom's weekend was a perfect storm. You cannot play this deck week to week. In this matchup, I think the 2 Chandras will be coming in, and the Prophetic Flame Speaker as well. But, again, not a lot to bring in this matchup. The real thing is how many copies of Searing Blood does AJ have in his deck to cut? It appears the answer is 0.
Wow, without that card, that's a little surprising.
Without anywhere in the 75.
Yeah.
0 copies.
Yeah.
So he'll cut the Mizium Mortars, he'll cut some number of Shocks, and bring in the Chandras, the Prophetic Flame Speakers. And then if he wants to, cut all the Shocks, maybe he brings in something like the 2 copies of Wear Tear, the 2 copies of Pithing Needle. I think you're going to see sideboarding along those lines.
We talk about Tom Ross and his win at the Invitational. We can't forget, man. A big W for Tom with Boss Sly and then Blue-Green Infect.
There's a couple of tournament wins that mean a lot to the people who are watching the coverage, and this is one of those. Tom, very well respected, plays distinct decks. None really more than the Boss Sly deck. He's been advocating Standard for months now, and watching him win that tournament against a very tough field, a very tough elimination rounds in terms of quality of opponents. A signature win for Tom.
Truth be told, how can't you love the boss? And hey, how can't you love CVM as well? Taking a bite out of that trophy. He earned it. He can do whatever the heck he wants to that thing.
Yeah, congratulations to Chris. Gives him a slot in the Players' Championship. Not a lot of drama going in the weekend. Had it locked up in the previous weekend in Providence, and realistically had it pretty close to locked up for a couple weeks beforehand, but still feels good to get the checkbox next to your name.
The one thing Chris doesn't have is what Tom does have, and it's one of these bad boys. His likeness on a card, and what a likeness it is.
Yeah, this is, speaks for itself. This is a great token for Tom, and unlike many of the other tokens that we've had created over the years, Swan Song token, a Germ token, this is going to be one where there's regularly 7, 8, 9 copies of them in play. So Tom did wise both stylistically and by choosing a token where it's going to get a lot of face time.
And we will see plenty of that, especially when he is in attendance in a Legacy Open. And heck, he'll get to use these in Modern as well. He loves Blue-Green Infect in Modern. So congratulations yet again to Tom the Boss Ross on winning our Season 2 Invitational last weekend in Columbus. He's going to our Players' Championship, and even though we are beginning here in season number 3, we'll have to find 2 more players to go as well. Should be fun. Again, we've already got 4 fantastic players qualified, 12 to go, and we'll be punching 2 more tickets at the end of Somerset, which is right around the corner.
Watching, seeing what Joe can do this week and next to me is the most compelling thing. Can he push himself into first place of that point standing?
Yeah, I think that is really he's off to a 4-0 start. I think it is really compelling to watch him over the course of the tournament. We watch Joe a lot when he's here, especially in the Legacy portion of things, but this particular weekend and next weekend in Portland, he's got a real chance to catch Alex Bertoncini and really take a lead and influence his behavior, and if he's going to travel, what he's going to do, because we have seen that, the grinding out approach of top 32s and IQs, Chris Van Meter is living proof that that works.
And Gerard is right on the heels of all of this as well for this in the same fashion.
If you want to qualify for the Players' Championship, is it hard? Yeah, it's tough. You got to play a lot and you got to win, but is it doable? Absolutely.
Yeah, and Feline is another player. It's definitely under the radar. I suspect she's not in the top 16 of the standings right now in terms of buys or anything like that, but has attended enough opens and has put together, a top 8 in Legacy a couple weeks ago, a couple top 16s kind of sprinkled around. She's going to be in the running too, and if she is able to spike one of these opens, could really catapult herself into the end of the year conversation.
It feels like another Legacy specialist trying to find the ground in Standard, figure out what the right deck is to play. Again, Lisette has actually more Standard Open wins than Legacy, but we always think of Lisette as a Legacy master. It looks like he's found something to work with here in blue-white.
Yeah, no, it's definitely in his wheelhouse, right? He's very comfortable playing slow control strategies. If you ever watch him play Miracles, he's very good at playing the games quickly so he can finish rounds in time. That's as valuable of a skill as being able to make the right decisions.
Well, we're underway in game number 2 here. Longmore with a Temple of Enlightenment, a little scry action. Sacher, I think, I would say things with the plan, game number 1. Just getting in some chip shots with Mutavaults and just finishing off with Burn. That's an ideal situation.
Easy stuff.
A Temple of Deceit along with a little bit of scry. Sacher, no Mutavaults this go around, but a young Pyromancer to get things going.
And that's one of the powerful cards there. Yeah. Now, Young Pyromancer is very good. It's not quite as good against Esper as a lot of decks because it matches up pretty poorly against Jace, Ratchet Bomb, Detention Sphere, but still a very powerful card.
Young Pyromancer is off the table. I think that's an important one to have off of the table. Here comes a Phoenix. Though, this is a better Last Breath target than Young Pyromancer, I think.
Yeah, no, you know, AJ, mulliganing with this deck is really rough. The burn deck needs all of its resources, but it's got a good start thus far.
Got a couple of lands left in the hand, but one of them, thankfully for him, is a Scry land. So you see another Phoenix on War Leader's Helix along with 2 lands, one of which is a Temple of Triumph. So got some things to do, and we'll see how many chip shots Phoenix can get in the meantime. It's another Temple here from Longmore.
You know, I get it that you can't really afford to have that many Scry lands comes to play tap lands in these decks, but when I was playing various burn strategies in Standard, I wanted to play as many as possible because the deck's very sensitive to flooding out.
Yeah.
You know, you need all of your draws to be live.
And really, that effect is just so powerful.
Yeah.
In this kind of deck. It stops you from flooding, lets you find the cards you're looking for, makes it realistic to have a Skull Crack in time for a Sphinx's Revelation. It's just a card that you really got to like.
And rarely do you need to be that sensitive with curving out. I mean, some games you do, but not all of them. It's more about getting things set up more than tapping out every single turn.
This matchup, for example, feels like more of a setup match because it's not a full-blown race.
Right.
Looks like another Phoenix we're going to come across here for 4. I'm not sure if Longmore has any way to get these off the table. You saw the Last Breath take care of course, the Young Pyromancer, but Last Breath much better against these Phoenixes. And Sacher dancing around the air with the 2/2 flyers.
It's a spot where Feline could really use Detention Sphere. And usually when Feline, you know, is like, oh, this card's really bad for me right now, you're kind of joking around. It honestly is bad for her.
It's horrible news.
Yeah. She's not joking around.
This is going to be a small revelation, simply for 1. See if Sacher has any interest in maybe skull cracking this guy. I think he does have one. Yeah, he does. Yeah, this is might as well.
Well, that's potentially a good spot to land the War Leader's Helix because it's the most expensive of the removal spells. So it's worth a pause at least. But since AJ has a Lightning Strike backup in case, say, Supreme Verdict happens this turn, I like doing it this way.
See another revelation over there in Longmore's hand, but a revelation for 3 is not quite enough, and there just hasn't been any interaction in the early turns of the game. That's the big problem.
Yeah. Sometimes Phoenix just can randomly do a lot of damage against Esper.
And here's a Jace. So that's going to tick up. And just has to pass the turn back. Lightning Strike's going to go upstairs. And that's going to buy out and negate. Sacher going to quickly untap now. We know about the War Leader's Helix in the hand. Takes a draw. It's a copy of Sacred Foundry. And now it's time to maybe think a little bit because it's not going to be that easy anymore.
Yeah, it's tough. You know, AJ can attack for 2, Helix down to 1, but then Feline gets an untap, draw a card, look at 3 with Jace. And let's say she finds a Detention Sphere or a Sweeper and has a counterspell left over, things can get a little dangerous here for AJ. You know, he's not out of the woods just yet.
It's one of those situations where as a burn player, you can get him to 1, and you're always thinking, well, I can get him to 1, why can't I get him to 0?
Right.
I must have done something wrong for it to line up as an odd number. Well, we'll see. It's time for the red zone. He's actually going to go towards Jace. A little surprising there.
I think he's taking out Jace with this War Leader's Helix.
You like this line of play? Assuming it goes that way?
I think this is... Well, let's see if this is getting redirected.
It looks like there is no redirect. I think the thought process here, as Longmore looks like it's going to go down to 2, is that if she takes Jace down to 2, then you can finish Jace off, and then the other Phoenix can go upstairs. But if she's taking Jace down, then your Phoenixes are good anyway.
Yeah, 2 versus 1 is the same thing in this spot.
Yeah.
Except for Jace plussing means that if 1 Phoenix dies, you are short on lethal.
Yeah. Well, there's a revelation. This is going to be only for 2, leaving Dispel mana available. So Longmore's going to go up to 4. Again, not the largest revelations in the world. You see, there is a Last Breath over there. I think Longmore's wondering, have I played a land yet this turn? Okay. And we'll just be passing the turn back over to Sacher. It's time to come into the red zone. So no interest in attacking Jace this go around. And Sacher will just pass the turn back. Longmore at a very dangerous 2 life. And draws a copy and negate. The one thing that Longmore does have going for her is that there are a lot of counterspells that are cheap to interact with.
It's a big tool against Burn. Dispel's one of the better cards in the format.
Yeah. That and negate, some really, really nice options here. We're going to see a Last Breath take care of 1 Phoenix.
This is another spell. You notice it's variety of counter spells here. Jace is plussed. Kind of slow. I mean, it's by no means stable.
No, the direct opposite of it.
But she is not at any immediate risk of dying.
An attack here for 1 will put Sacher down, or excuse me, we'll put Longmore down to 1. However, Sacher has drawn back-to-back creatures, Young Pyromancer and Prophetic Flame Speaker. Flame Speaker especially bad right now.
Yeah.
So Pyromancer will come to play. And there's a Hero's Downfall. With this spell open, well, still protecting. Even though we know Sacher doesn't have an instant speed removal spell, still protecting.
Yep. I feel I'm being very careful. I mean, there's no way there's any shields down going on in the spell here.
No way. I think Sacher is trying to like bluff that he has something at this point again, because the hand is just Prophetic Flame Speaker and a land, but you know, there's definitely value to bluffing so that your opponent keeps that 1 mana available the whole time.
Especially against a deck with Sphinx's Revelation. I mean, he's got to keep up appearances here.
And there is the Flame Speaker. So a new one, but really bad in the face of Jace.
Yeah.
So you see Sacher point that out. Temple of Light Mana come in here. Top card's going to go to the bottom. Flame Speaker actually a card that's seeing more play in Modern right now than Standard. Seeing play in Modern Jund as a replacement to Bloodbraid Elf.
Yep. I mean, it's not quite the same thing because Lightning Bolt's in the format, but this card does quite a bit of work.
I know that when I played against this the first time, I made fun of my opponent cast it, and then they hit me with it, and I stopped laughing.
Right.
Yeah.
It's a lot.
It felt like a Dark Confidant, and I did not win that game after 4 hits of it. In we go. Of course, the Flame Speaker not going to do very much here. Jace triggers, assuming that Longmore does announce them. We'll get the job done. Well, you saw Sacher pick up a copy of the Needle. So that's going to come in and take down Jace. And all of a sudden, this Prophetic Flame Speaker is looking very difficult to beat.
This has got to be negate worthy here. I don't think Feline can let this resolve.
You think so?
Yeah, unless she's got some backup plan, but the Jace is doing so much work right now.
Yeah. There is a removal spell here. Actually, there's 2. But I agree with you. It's not the fact that the Flame Speaker is lethal. It's the fact that Jace has been shut off.
Yes.
I think that's the important part. Is there's Doomblade. Jace would be able to minus now, and there's so many different things it could do over the course of the game, and now it just can't do anything.
She's getting pretty close to the point where she could have ultimated and found a War Leader's Helix out of AJ's deck and gotten a lot of breathing space.
There's Mutavault. And Sacher predictably going to fire this up and cross the fingers, but you see a removal spell here. It's a Hero's Downfall. That'll take care of that. Sacher with just 2 lands in hand. So they get a very high 32 with Longmore at 1, but can he close it out? And that may be the card that Longmore was looking for. This is a Sphinx's Revelation. It's going to be for 4. Up to 5.
And this is a big start. She now has to spell back up. There's no single card in AJ's deck that can win the game with someone at 5. So he needs a lot more resources now to be able to push through.
And no land to play, so just passing the turn back over to Sacher, who will draw a card. It's another land. This game's getting away from him now. Just drew too many of them.
Yeah. That's why the deck needs to scry a lot. You're really sensitive to flooding out.
And Jace did a lot of work in this game, too. And the top card's going to go to the bottom there for Longmore off the Temple of Silence. And simply passing the turn back. Now, the difficult thing here for Longmore, of course, is that closing out a game is actually kind of hard. As far as win conditions go, there's an Elspeth. And that's really about it. There's nothing on the board, but there's an Elspeth.
But a lot of counter spells.
Yes.
To protect yourself.
I mean, AJ trying to deal those 5 points of damage, it's not easy. But as far as Longmore closing out the game, that's not easy either.
It's incidental for Feline to leave up 1 mana for the remainder of the game, though.
Yeah.
And the Dispel is just such a big insurance policy.
A wear and tear does come off the top, but that one's not going to do very much. That can't surprise you either.
No.
Sounds like Brian Kibler's on his way here to hang out with people.
They've given him the Elvis. Okay. Well,
The what exactly? The Elvis treatment?
The Elvis Presley has entered / left the building sort of deal there.
You see Longmore play a replacement chase, I think, for getting the needles in play, so playing another one doesn't actually do very much. Sacher picking up a copy of Skullcrack. You see Boros Charm, Skullcrack, Wear Tear, and a land right now.
This is the danger of, Feline not being able to close the game out. AJ has a ton of resources to work with here, so he can just build up a hand that make him play over the top of counter spells.
Yep. This is probably going to be a negate, and it will be. No interest in letting anything resolve. Just going to play him out and pass the turn back.
I wasn't a huge. I think at that point, AJ needs to try to build up a hand, wait for Feline to play Sphinx's Revelation, and hope that he has enough firepower to kill her in response.
I was going to actually ask you about that, but you beat me to it, of just, firing off that one spell, even if it resolves, and you put your opponent down to 1, it doesn't mean that the green light's on for the Skullcrack, for example.
Correct.
I like amassing a lot of instant speed spells, even if Warlord of Phoenix is involved, even though it does cost 4, and just firing off in response to a bunch of stuff.
Yeah. You can just hope that Feline makes a mistake, taps low in a spot that she's not supposed to, and you may have enough to play over.
Oh, and there's a hand with Dispel and friends. This will be a Magma Jet. And that will get dispelled. And see, that card is a nice card to lead into a counterspell because your other spells deal more damage.
Yeah.
So now here's a Skullcrack. And that's going to put Longmore down to 2. Sensing that the shields may be a little bit low, so now here comes the Phoenix. And this is part of the reason I think that he did this. And now the Phoenix will come into play. Maybe sensing a little bit of weakness on that side of the table. And this is an attack, and I think this is a lethal one.
Wah, wah, wah.
Yeah, and it is. And that's going to do it. So AJ Sacher is going to win this match over Feline Longmore, 2-0. Burn getting the job done over Esper Control, and it did feel like a favorable one for Burn.
Yeah, no, I think Feline's got some cards in her deck that help out a lot in this matchup, but there are big costs being played along the way, and not all of her cards are good, so feels comfortably favorable for AJ here.
Yeah, the ability to close is something that's not really there. I think that's a big deal, is that even though Sacher will have difficulty maybe closing the game out, those revelations that were cast, there was one for 1, there was one for 2, and there was one for 4. And while that's not the best use of revelation in the matchup, you almost have your hand forced to be for small revelations.
Yeah, I think the big decision comes down to that Jace and the Pithy Needle that AJ played. I understand wanting to hold the negate because, AJ needs to kill me with spells and this protects me against spells, but I think Jace at that point, it's at 7. You're very close to being able to go ultimate, at which point winning the game is pretty incidental. Or you can start minusing and just try to find more counter spells to protect yourself. In either case, I feel like the Jace in that spot is worth significantly more than a negate, especially when you have a Dispel left over in your hand to protect yourself from getting killed by a Boros Charm or whatever else.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one, especially